Hey, what's up guys? It's your boy Patience and I decided to come at you guys with a little new one. So in this one I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the things that we have going on in the verse at the moment and things that I guess could be a lot better, things that are quite amazing and things that I would like to see. Generally just doing a little kind of like raw breakdown review as it were. Obviously this is the alpha, which is I don't mind this ship. I obviously got the Alpha Mustang. I obviously got the Aurora over this one because the Aurora has the bed. It has cargo capacity. This one's now being upgraded to have cargo, because if I'm not mistaken, when I went to get this one, it did not have cargo units within its hull. So that was one of the things that deterred me from this one, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be fully compatible with dogfighting, which is fighting other ships. So that's what led me on to the Aurora at that time. Taking that into consideration, guys, one of the first things I want to talk about, I've got quite a few things that I want to talk about here, would be docking stations. Now obviously we know that Memorial Spaceport is one of the largest docking stations because it is retardedly huge. Hell, you can see this thing from space. Taking that into consideration, regardless of its size, we know the importance of these docking stations, as this is big business within the realm of Star Citizen within the verse. Players use it, NPCs will be using it, and they are just a generally busy infrastructure regardless of how you want to look at this piece of land mass material. We have RMC going in, we have cargo going in, we have raw materials going in, we're selling weapons, foods, we have compartments in there, restaurants, which is food, we have hotels, rentable apartments, purchasables. We have financial districts, shopping districts. Obviously you can buy your ships from here, so this is a gigantic kind of complex that we're talking about here. From here the scope looks relatively neat. You'd say it doesn't look that big considering the fact that I'm flying pretty darn fast here, roughly around 300 meters per second or so, which is really freaking fast, guys. And that thing does not seem to be shrinking at the speeds that I'm moving at. As you can see, I'm almost in space at this present moment in time. So my general point here would be the fact that as this is a very important structure within the verse alongside other space stations, I would expect to see or hear a lot more I guess you could say invitations thrown out at gamers and NPC units alike. Obviously, this is our docking station. Come here, you can find these kind of measurements, these kind of things, and we have this, and we can offer this, and this, and you got your trading. In other words, they need people to come in to their space pads, because in the future when we have the economy implemented into the game, which is something that I've heard obviously CIG talk about on many occasions, I think Star Sim is supposed to be the introduction to that, which is something that comes in 1.0, which is something that I seriously can't wait to see and get my hands on. I'm not sure if it's a tangible thing for players, but it's most certainly something from the observable screen space that we'll be able to kind of like spectate on and just kind of see how the universe plays out, just to see how busy it is. Now at the moment the only activity that the universe or the verse has is with the gamers, players. We go around doing cargo and all mining, salvaging. All these things don't really have a meaning or a purpose yet besides building our own wallets. If you were to take away the wallet structure, you kind of see how bland these things actually are, because the game could probably still run anyway. So taking that into consideration, obviously now I'm near Beijing, which is another space docking station, and that's a planetary docking station. And I usually do run a little business from each case scenarios to make myself a little buck or two. So I'm very familiar with this system, and the system's obviously very familiar with me. So will we be looking at business deals in the future, contract deals, and could we set an allegiance with companies in the future? These are things that I'm looking at and trying to pick out what CIG may or may not be trying to tell us as gamers. As a complaint that the game is changing from time to time and not continuing from its progressive state, as it were. CIG might say we're going to do this, they do it, but it takes a very long time for them to do so. If you was to take that into consideration and take the scope of the whole game, you could kind of say to yourself, well, technically they've committed to everything that they have said. They've given onto gamers everything that they said they would give onto us, and then some. So everything that technically I paid for, I have kind of got. Obviously, there's a lot more to come, but when I got into this, I didn't fully know of the other systems that we have not got our hands onto yet, that we'll be getting like a little taste of that for 1.0. So we know that there's a big system of things out there, other planets, other worlds, other galaxies, as it were. And to access these spots, we need to use black holes or jump gates, as it were. But as you can see, we can see the space station here from space, but there's no engagement there. I can't book a landing point from here down at Memorial. If I'm going to book a landing pad, it would be at Beijing, but I'm nowhere near close enough to book a landing pad at Beijing. To me, that don't really make sense. Beijing should be able to reach out to me somewhere from here. As I'm flying past the AC Corp, if I channel in to my, let's just say my radio system, I should be able to pick up the signal of AC as they broadcast out into space for players to pick up on their broadcast, so we can go there, dock, land, and do business. Because this is how the planet and Memorial makes their influx, their money, their business. This is how money circulates, and they need us to go there so that they can make money off of our money, and we can make money off of their money. So that's one of the things that I can't wait for, to see a little bit more immersion there, you know, that gripping kind of realism where players are kind of like forced, as it were, kind of dragged, I guess you would use the word exploited from their path in order to go over to AC. We're dragged over, wooed over, as it were, to their compelling shout outs for us to go and do business with them. That's very, very, very important. It's kind of it's you know, it's conglomerate, as it were. You have one side of things that wants to do things this way, and you have another side of things that's doing things this way. But once we find the mesh here and there, then we can kind of like focus ourselves and create a bigger, I guess you could say, a unified system. Because I'm assuming that when we look at somewhere like Crusader, and across the way from Crusader we have Grimhex, you kind of say, well, how does this kind of function? Because on one side you're seeing something that looks so uplifted and beautiful, perfect financially, and then on the other side, right next door to this thing, you have something that's so tiny, fragile, broken. So if you were to kind of take that into, you know, a kind of physical format, and you were to say you've got weeds next to a nice little plant, the weed is going to suck all the moisture away from that plant, and that plant is going to wither and die. But if you tend to that plant, over time it will begin to replenish itself and grow back strength and formality. So again, I kind of take this notion and say, is this what CIG is kind of trying to point out to us, that when we get rich and we're spending our money the way how we spend it, and we're trying to get the best thing, that we can suck other economies dry, and that we can break economies if we're not careful as players. And these are the things that will create wars and, you know, players turning against each other, creating a system very similar to what we see in Pyro. So next, is this something that we could be focusing on? Are they going to tell us another story to what they want us to focus on? I'm not sure, but I'm just assuming. Which leads us on to the other two systems that we will be looking for in 1.0 that they've promised to deliver onto us. And if that's the case, we're kind of playing a little story within its own right, guys, which in that sense, I can't really necessarily complain my darn self. Taking that into consideration, we got the Fabricator. So this is me moving on to the next point now. The Fabricator was something I tried to bring out in my previous video, which was an entire flop. Why was it an entire flop? Because I feel like the Fabricator does not kind of it's not punctual enough. It doesn't explain itself well enough. It's not user friendly. It doesn't help a player or a gamer to understand its UI in order to achieve their purpose successfully. I accidentally what did I do? I dismantled 3 of my items because I didn't really necessarily know what I was doing. There was no real tutorial in game. I had to use out game third-party tutorials. In this instance, I had to use YouTube because no one I know has used the Fabricator yet. Taking that into consideration, blueprints I personally feel should be used only for rare items, not for every single item. If I've got remote control in my house, a keyboard, a mouse, a microphone, or maybe I have a PC, whatever it may be, guys, and I want to upgrade this piece of material, first off, I don't need blueprints. Second off, the best I need is a little bit of knowledge. And third off, it's easy to upgrade, you know, given the fact that most parts are made with plastic, wires, copper, etc, etc, etc. So taking that into consideration, if I want to upgrade my GPU, for instance, and I take it to NVIDIA, what they're not going to do is go to someone that has, I'm currently using a 3080 Founders Edition that was gracefully bestowed onto me for testing usages. Taking that into consideration, if I was to pass it on to NVIDIA and say I want more, I want to have more gigabytes supplied to my my GPU. So right now I unfortunately have the 10 gigabyte. There's a 12 gigabyte. I don't want 12 gigabyte. Let's say I want 24 gigabytes on my 3080. What they're not going to do is go and get a 1080 GTX and dismantle it in order to upgrade my 3080, because you're not going to have the right components in order to do so. Not to mention the 1080 GTX or GTI is well out of date by now, guys, so it's going to be past its sell by date. And not only that, it's also going to have been used quite a bit, guys, which means it's decayed quite a bit. And it's quite aged now, which means if I dismantle that and I try to apply it to something of a newer standard, a newer grade, in order to upgrade, I'm going to come out with something a bit more downgraded from what I went in with, guys, and it's probably going to be a bit more aged and a bit more tired out. The idea when we're thinking of upgrading is to get newer goods, newer materials, stronger materials, unknown materials, in order to make my product a hell of a lot better. Again, if I was to go out and get myself a 5090, this is something that's a little bit more rare. Not everyone can get their hands onto a 5090 due to the price range. it's a very new product, so likelihood I'm going to need blueprints, as we call it. Blueprints is a term that's long gone out of date, guys, but we're going to use the term blueprints. And likelihood I'm going to need to get my hands onto that manual script so I can first off figure out how it works in order for me to upgrade the bits and bobs needed to be upgraded. So that was the first issue and problem I had with the fabricator. It's not necessarily easy to use, and the use of it is a bit too far-fetched. It's a bit too retarded, if you ask me. Every living thing that you put in the fabricator needs a blueprint. I don't necessarily think that's the right way to go. If we was to use a manual, you need a manual to understand the product for the fabricator in order for the fabricator to use its mechanicals to upgrade your device, then that makes a little bit more sense to me. But saying that you need a blueprint and you can just magically, as it were, get things done, if you ask me, needs a little bit more explanation. As you can see here, I kind of flew into something that just came out of the dark. Unfortunately, my ship didn't explode, even though that's quite the whack. But hey, that's how things go. Armors. I'll move on to the next point, guys. Armors. I kind of brought out in my previous video, my most recent one that I uploaded. The armors are something that need a lot of attention, guys. We have light armors, medium, and heavy. Within the real world, you're going to have multiple versions of each tier of armor. Heavy armor is going to have about 5 sets. Let's just say medium, 5 sets, light, 5 sets. Before you get to the medium armor from light armor, you're going to have so many ranges and variations of what light armor actually is. You're going to have very minimal what can I say, materials within your very low tier light armor that it's almost dangerous to wear these things out in a firefight. But obviously it will protect you. It's usually, I'm guessing, used for defense against sidearms, like penetration. If you were to get like a real suit up firearm similar to like a Desert Eagle, as it were, or one of those really high-powered sidearms, then you'll probably have a little bit of problems. It'll either kind of penetrate a hole into your armors, otherwise it's going to leave you really mangled and tangled, and probably even fracture some of your internal organs. So this is why they would make a higher level, a higher tier light armor, something that can protect you against those kind of range of weapons, those real powerful sidearms. The higher up you get in light armor, is the better it can defend you against certain weaponry that you will have within a certain range of firing arms. I guess you could say testing, whatever. Let's just say light armor is likely going to protect you from sidearms. That's about it. Medium armors, very light medium armor, the first entry medium armor is likely very similar to not necessarily the heavy light armor, but the kind of like just coming out of medium, light, and borderline in heavy, meaning that it's not necessarily going to protect you from anything heavier than a sidearm, a pistol. So it's going to be very cheap, but it's using better materials, and you're probably going to have more of these materials wrapped around your armors, so you can feel a bit more safe, a bit more comfortable. Taking that into consideration, medium armor will protect you quite nicely at a certain range, of course, from pistols, very souped up pistols, and maybe your light automatics. It'll probably keep you safe from a certain kind of gun that can shoot, let's say, a couple tens, maybe hundreds of rounds per minute. At a certain distance, these rounds, are flying really fast, and they're obviously coming out at a certain particular burst rate. But within a certain range, or outside of a certain range, you're going to be relatively protected pretty darn well, so long as you're not consistently hit by these barrage of projectiles. Medium armor, stronger medium armor, which is where we're ranging into now heavies, you're going to be protected in a way where you can be relatively satisfied from that range. Again, you're not going to want to stand there. And then heavy armors is the same. There's going to be a range of each of these bracketed materials that's going to protect you better against certain weaponries. Like heavy armor is likely going to protect you from shotguns, obviously you're going to find heavy armor that will be able to protect you from sniper rounds. Obviously these things are using huge caliber rounds, but the point is not that it's going to protect you as such, as if to say that you've now become immortal. The idea is to give you, like a mortal chance, preferably not for a second round, but to run to cover and to tend to yourself, likely wounds, etc, etc, etc. You're likely going to be sent flying, whether you're shot by a sniper or a shotgun, and you're likely going to have real bad physical injuries. And if you do have internal injuries, it's likely going to be ruptures or maybe internal bleeding via force alone and sheer impact. Again, your armors are going to be shredded and torn apart damn near on every contact from that projectile sent from that weapon. So it's not like when you get hit, your armor is going to keep its fixed form. It will begin to deteriorate pretty darn quickly, might I add. So these are things that we need to consider, because when we say we're going to go out looting and we find ourselves one of these bad guys and we spray him down with as much rounds as we possibly can just to down this dude, and then we just take his armor, it's like, to me, that don't make sense. Now that's where the fabricator would come in. The fabricator would repair this armor back to its functional standard. It damn near to brand new, maybe brand new, but a little bit better, depending on how you approach the matter. Well, then you've just gone and upgraded the whole darn thing. And not just that, but it's also brand new, back at full functional standards as required, you might say. So that's something else that I believe needs to be looked into, and something that I think is another aspect that needs to be looked into is I recently bought the Salvation, just for its looks alone, because it's a very beautiful ship. I'm not really a salvager myself, but I may get into it a little bit because I've bought the Salvation. But crafting has now been released onto patch 4.9 and will obviously be in patch 4.10 because we've seen it tested. So taking that into consideration, I was thinking maybe it would have been a good idea if the Salvation was multilinguistic, as it were, with its functions, meaning it's not just a Salvation ship, but you could also convert or take away the Salvation aspects and then implement the mining. So now it's a mining ship rather than just salvaging. Having ships that can kind of multitask in certain ways once swapping out its components, I think is very intuitive, and I think would be very beneficial, not just for gamers but for the purse as well. So that's something that I think should be looked into by gamers in CIG, because it's something that really would appeal not just to myself, but I think to other gamers alike. And then we move on to the next subject, guys, which would be gun attachments. Before we do, I tend to find that flying in this jump gate, this warp hole, is very intriguing, but it is a lot more trickier, if you ask me, than the next gate, because it does really pull and target you, especially when you're in a smaller vessel, and if you're in a really large vessel. But I haven't tried it with my Ares yet, guys. Taking that into consideration, gun attachments. I believe personally each gun should have its own unique attachment. Not each gun, but each gun within its own class. Pistols or sidearms should have their own attachments, shotguns their own attachments, and snipers their own attachments. I don't like the idea that I can take a size 2 attachment and put it onto any gun that's practically size 2 equivalent, because that means that they all have the same shape or the same nozzle, as it were, for that attachment piece, and to me that just does not really make sense. So that's something that needs to be looked into, ensuring that we keep to as real as possible. So attachments need to be attached to their specific component quite uniquely, like how it is for real, or as real as it gets, guys. I think that is most important. As well, one of the attachments that I think is a need, a must, and a demand would be the lens sight. Being able to kind of zoom out. At the moment, the farthest zoom we have is 16 times. I don't necessarily know what 16 times means. 16 times the sight of vision. But taking that into consideration, I would like to see a lens scope that can zoom 1,000 kilometers, guys. Now you might say to yourself, okay, why would you want to zoom 1,000 kilometers? This is just the first step into brilliance. I would actually like to zoom about 200, maybe 200. Maybe how much was it? About 10,000 kilometers, maybe even 20,000 kilometers. The reason being, guys, is because we're using super weapons of the future, 900 years in the future. So first, let's just get this into context here, is we're going to be under kind of submission. We're going to be under kind of the gun when considering where our opposition may be kind of like opposing us from. So there's going to be a lot of opposition. They're not just going to be on the ground. These guys are going to be up in the sky, you know, and obviously there's satellites in the sky. So if they got a satellite flying by and they're trying to scope our systems, you want to take that satellite down. So you want to keep on the watch for that. If they're kind of like roving around the space station, you want to keep an eye on these guys, and if you can take them down, you're going to want to take them down. Now, how do you take them down? Obviously, you're not going to use a basic projectile like what we use today, which is shooting ballistics, because that just don't realistically make any darn sense, unless obviously you're catapulting a bomb out into space, which is a bit overkill and a bit too obvious. So the idea is to keep it discreet as possible, stealth, especially if people are watching you. You don't want them knowing that you're about to shoot a highly expensive round at them. So plasma, we have plasma rounds. What are plasma rounds? If you look at the sun is practically a big ball of plasma. Some people could argue that electricity is plasma, gas or plasma, everything plasma, but the sun is a big ball of plasma. Electricity is plasma. Dismiss the electricity here. What we're going to focus on is more, when we say plasma round, we're talking more kind of like gamma, and you know, like all this kind of heated energy burst rays. So these things are kind of like they're kind of like heated energy, heated focused energy that you can visibly see because it comes in the form of light. So when you shoot these highly charged energy and gamma rays, as it were, let's just say you shoot at someone's ship and they've got shields on. If they're highly charged heated gamma rays, the first thing it's going to want to do is overheat your shields. If you shoot ballistics at someone's shields, the ballistics are going to want to break through the shields. There's no real way for bullets to break through a shield. So the first thing you're going to have to do is turn on your plasma or your energy rounds, overheat their shields. This could take a little while, because what the opposition could do is lower the energy of their shields. So as you begin pounding on their shields with your plasma rounds, which are heated, energized light balls, I guess you could say, and you're throwing those projectiles at their shields, effectively what you're doing is you're charging up their energy, or their battery, as it were, to full power. So their shields are gonna kind of like meet full power before it goes crashing into that overheat status kind of situation. There's obviously a bit of maths that go into that, because their battery will only take in a certain amount of energy. It was made for absorbing a certain amount of energy. If you're powering or overcharging their energy or power supply unit, first off, they could explode. And second off, you could create a crazy shortage, which will blow out their energy or their shields completely. So these are things that we kind of got to look into here. Plasma, you would shoot plasma rounds. Plasma rounds would be one of the, or the only type of rounds you would shoot over 1,000 meters, I'm talking kilometers here, 1,000 kilometer distance, and you would have your reason for doing so, to stop people from spying on your base, or kind of like somewhat like coup d'etat against your base in any way, shape or possible. You're kind of breaking down their opposition, because the most important thing for us is to protect our bases. Obviously base crafting has not been implemented yet, but when it is, you're going to want to protect your base. I can guarantee you that. And you're going to want to know that there's no one trying to go up on your base from a certain distance, because they know where you're located and situated. You want to know what's going on within 1,000 kilometer distance, and if possible, you're going to want to have a larger scope on your surrounding area to make sure that your base is kept well and safe. Remember, you might have that base in that location for a certain particular reason, and you don't want your investments going to waste here, guys. So taking that into consideration brings me on to my next point, which is gore, blood, guts, etc, etc, etc. Obviously, we're all familiar with the new title coming out, which will be Wolverine. So there's no excuse, guys. Wolverine is showing blood, it's showing guts, and the violence is peaked onto another level, and I'm drooling for it, literally, guys. And then I turn back and I look at this, and I shoot someone in his kidney, I shoot someone in his hip, I shoot someone in his kneecap, in his toes, I shoot him in his hand, I shoot him in his chest, his lung, his head, and I ain't seeing no brains, I ain't seeing no internal systems, I ain't seeing no blood down there. I don't see blood dripping down from the walls. Like I mentioned, I have a nice graphics card in here, and it's capable of handling quite a lot of details, but I still feel like I'm playing Sonic the Hedgehog a little bit, guys. So I want to catch up a little bit with a lot of details, the minuscule ones, as to the large ones, while we wait on a lot of the information that CIG is trying to pass on to us to understand and register as infested gamers into the verse. Taking that into consideration, obviously, I want to see severed parts, bodies exploding with bombs, shattered, with shotguns, sniper rifles. I want to see holes left in, torsos, etc. Heads blown clean off, heads blown partially off, dismembered body parts, etc, etc, etc. These are the things that I want to see. I want to hear pain, I want to see screams, I want to feel like I'm in a battle zone, guys. So I want to move on to my next point here, which is land vehicles. Their prices are a bit too estranged for me. simply because they cost the same amount as ships, guys. And not just that, but also a gaming package, which to me just does not make any freaking sense. Why the hell would I buy a little land vehicle that can barely carry 2 SCU for a game package, which is the game and a ship, and possibly 2 games in a ship? Don't make any sense at all. So the prices there are unreasonable, and I think they need to be fixed in quite a bit. So taking that into consideration, adaptability and upgrades, a lot of these little vehicles, their upgradability and adaptability is very poor. They carry 2 SCU, maybe 4 crates at a time, and to me that's not really good enough, because you're going to want to carry a little bit more. In the real world we have trucks, so why can't we attach other components to this little land vehicle in order for it to carry 16, maybe 24 SCU, you know, by the crates or 4s. So 4 crate SCU, 4 crate SCU, 4 crate SCU. Otherwise you're using 1 SCU, and you got you know, you lay it out however you want to lay it, and you build them on top of each other. You got something that looks like a truck or a train instead of just that one little embodiment feature. They're so vulnerable as well. You can't upgrade them in any way to make them look more sturdy, more defensed in any way. So these are things that I think need to be looked into, rather than just slapping any old price onto, you know, a little product. Actually make a little bit more sense, as it were. And then obviously moving on to the next point would be destructible environments, guys. I don't necessarily feel like we're getting the best of that. I mean, obviously CIG has showcased a little bit of it, and yes, it does look good, but it could always look a hell of a lot better. And with all this time that we've had between then and here, I would really like to know that they're working on something that is a hell of a lot better and greater than what we were looking at back then, which was about a year ago, I believe. I can't remember what they called that notion, but there was a name that they had for that when they would start showing Starlight and Star this and Star that. Star Sim was one of the things that they projected onto us. So for instance, if I shoot a round or I shoot a bullet and it hits the wall, that mark stays, it's persistent. If I drop a bomb and I damage the terrain is now damaged. If I destroy the space station is damaged. If I fly into a building, the building is damaged and my ship is damaged. What I do love, however, guys, is the fact that we will now be waiting realistic times for our vessels to be repaired. You know, so if we crash our ship, or our ship is kind of like destroyed, whatever, then what happens is we got to wait 3 days, or, you know, like maybe 3 hours. So we can't just claim our ships instantly. We got to pay real prices, and we got to wait real time. So if you don't have the ship to compensate or to replace yours, then you're literally gonna, you know, be in limbo for a very long time. So you will turn your game off and wait, or you pay your way. That, I think, is pretty darn good. I've been waiting for that for a very long time, because now it feels like things are getting a bit more weighty, a bit more real. Taking that into consideration, destructibility, persistent battle marks, etc., bullet shops, and stratinal. Obviously you want to see remainders of bullets, like 1 round can be left in, you know, like 5 different places. So I want to feel that battle region. I don't want to go into a realm and feel like I'm just walking in like a dead camp, like a not necessarily a cemetery. I want to feel like I was in a you know, like a trench, where you've got one team, another team, and I can literally feel the hatred spill all over the place, and I'm seeing bullets here, there, and everywhere, guys. So taking that into consideration, FPS weapons, like special effects. Of course, we got now plasma guns. In this instance, I'm talking plasma in all sense of the term. So we got electric, we got heat and charge plasma, we got this, we got that, we got all sorts of guns nowadays, guys. So taking that into consideration, if I shoot an electric gun and I hit a dude, with my electric gun, similar to a taser, but just godified, as it were. What do I expect to see? What's the reaction from a person that gets shot with a high jolted freaking electrical charged gun? Is the guy gonna kind of like stutter a bit, run into the fence? Is he gonna kind of like just reload his gun and fire back at me? What kind of reactions do I hope to see? Now, if an NPC is knows that you're coming towards his his environment, and he can hear you shooting away, whether or not he can tell what kind of gun you're using at that moment in time or not, when he sees you and sees what kind of gun you're holding, aka a super godlike taser, the first thing that's going to come into his head is what? Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want to be shot, guys. Not by that. And if I do get shot by that, what's going to happen? I'm likely going to drop my gun after I squeeze onto it as tight as I possibly can. And then I'm going to drop to the floor and I'm going to be knocked out likely, or I'm dead, or I'm going to begin to, set a light. Electricity is one of those things that we can probably all relate to, and I'm pretty sure we can all say if you get hit by electricity, the reactions that we're seeing in game is the reactions that we see in real life are completely absurdly different. Now, when I put a GPU into my system, that obviously comes with heavy financial costs for most people at least. The last thing on earth I want to be seeing is a reaction that's very similar to Sonic the Darn Hedgehog. So taking that into consideration, if I use an electric gun, I want to feel like I've used an electric gun. If I've taken out a flamethrower, for Christ's sakes, I want to feel like I'm burning someone's singes clean off their markers. And also I want to hear better gun sounds, because all the guns at the moment sound very cute and very nice and very sweet. I want to hear more barkage on the guns, guys. I want the guns to go a little bit more deep. I want them to sound very scary. If you've ever seen a movie like I guess it was called The Expendables, and there's a stage, forgive me for forgetting many of these actors' names, but he's a black actor, African American, and it's near the end of the movie, and he comes, his team's under pressure, and then just when you think everything's gonna go to plan and we're gonna lose, all of a sudden you start hearing like this crazy deep banging sound. It was so loud, and everyone kind of, even the enemies and the team players, everyone in the screen just kind of freezes. And you look back and then you see the guy skipping, and he's holding this gigantic gun, this monster of a weapon, and it's just banging and banging and banging and banging, and everyone it hits, it literally tears him from limb to limb. There's blood everywhere, guys. So if you're blood sensitive, blood case sensitive, please do not watch that darn movie. But that's how it plays out, and literally the weapons still to show throughout that movie. If you ever seen anything like Terminator 2, there's a stage he's using the same kind of weapon when he's shooting at all the police officers outside, I believe it was Skynet building at that time, and that was pretty darn neat as well. That gun sounded pretty darn fine. And there's other aspects where in movies, I'm pretty sure Dirty Harry, I believe his name is, he obviously uses one of those sidearms. I believe that would be Clint Eastwood. Now we're talking back in the times, guys. Those guns sound pretty darn nice, even though they've got that kind of like skew effect added to it. If you kind of pay attention, especially to the purpose and the meaning of what these weapons are trying to aid us towards, they do sound pretty darn nasty, guys. We don't have enough nasty sounding guns in the verse at the moment. They sound very kissy, very sweet, very nice, and I don't like it too much. So I think that's something that needs to be looked into ASAP, guys. Taking that into consideration, guns need more player access to them. What do I mean? At the moment, if I want to get a certain particular gun, I can get it. But when I get it, I have to be satisfied with what I got, and I don't like that. In the real world, what I would do is decorate my own damn gun. I can't decorate my darn gun. If I want a decorated gun, I have to buy it, or I've got to sign up to the subscription market, which I don't want to do at this present moment in time. So I believe players need to have the access to modify their weapons a little bit in that regard, paints, decals, etc. Even maybe kind of like printing their own names onto their weaponries. Maybe it might be their clan names, etc. So if you join an org, then you've got the org gun, etc. That would be pretty darn neat. Taking that into consideration, once you've created these materials, etc., whether the decals or the gun itself with the decal on it, then we can sell these things for, if anything, real loot. But how? In game, of course. I'm not necessarily too fond of third-party sites, even though some of them are trustable, but in many cases, especially in the future, you ain't necessarily always going to know which ones are trustable and which ones ain't. So I believe everything should be done in the verse, of course. It's safer and it's more reliable. Being able to trade real money in game between players, I think, would be a very fair way of doing things. It's also highly traceable, so it would be harder to commit fraud that way as well, and both players would have to agree, so there could be no spoofy actions there, guys, which I think would be pretty darn neat. Taking that into consideration, moving on to my next blooming point would be ship environment engagement. What do I mean by this? First off, we got VTOLs, guys. VTOLs are something that I can't wait to see come into functionality properly in the verse. At the moment, they don't freaking work. If I stock my ship up, regardless what ship I'm using with cargo, there's no weight difference. So there's no reason for me to use my VTOLs. If I'm coming into land on a planet that's heavier than 1G, 1 gravity spectrum, very similar to Earth, I don't need to use my VTOLs, and my ship doesn't feel any heavier than its usual state. So the same weight from Earth is the same weight in space, it's the same weight on a heavier dense planet or world. Or you got to take into consideration, like how you can see here, that I'm flying next to this star, and every second that goes by, guys, I'm actually getting closer and closer and closer to this blooming star. What the hell does that mean? You got to remember the fact that within the solar system, every single freaking planet that is within the solar system is being grappled by the gravitational pull of our sun. And so when I'm getting closer to this sun, generally speaking, what that means is my gravity density is either getting higher or lower depending on the direction of the object I'm kind of traversing, as it were. So if I'm moving closer to the star, the gravity begins to shoot upwards. So from 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G, as I begin to move further away, it declines until there's no more gravity. Now, what happens when there's no more gravity, guys? If I'm moving at high jolting speeds and I begin kind of like yawing my ship, or throwing my ship in a yawing trajectory, either to the left or to the right, as quickly as I can, I don't faint. And if I begin to pitch as fast as I can, up and down, I don't faint. And if I begin to spin around in all directions, again, I don't faint, because there's no gravity. I'm not fighting against any gravity. I'm pretty sure even if there's gravity inside my vessel alone, I still will not faint, because it's not there's no equation of my ship's environment, because there's no outside environment. So the only equation is inside. So it's like saying 1 add nothing, or 1 times nothing equals, or nothing times 1. Either way you want to put it, you know, it ends up being nothing because you're adding and you're multiplying by nothing. So you don't faint. And then if I was to, again, similarly turn off my gravity generators inside my ship and there's no gravity outside, you know, you're saying nothing at nothing equals, at the moment it's like it says it equals 1 by default, and I think that's a very harsh way of looking at things, guys. So that obviously is something that needs to be corrected. Obviously, when we go into a planet and the planet is a little more dense than the planet that we're all used to, I want to feel that density, guys. I want to take that into consideration when I'm hauling maybe not as much cargo as usual, but I feel like I'm hauling more cargo than my ship can even blooming carry. And so I've got to think about, well, how am I going to exit this planet, because my ship is now far too heavy to, you know, commit to this procedure. And maybe I went into the planet, you know, just kind of like scoping things out, exploring, and I found something that was very you know, valuable to me. I want to take it out, but I just can't at the moment, no matter what it is, no matter, because everything kind of weighs the same. My ship weighs the same as it does a stone, and a stone weighs just as much as my gun, and my body weighs just as much as my ship. And you can go round and round, all equates to be the same. So that's something that needs to be looked into. I can't wait until they fix that. And also better ship animations. For instance, when you're coming to land, do you know, like the kind of air that is dispensed from the bottom of your ship or distilled, I want to get that realistic feeling that it's kind of like pushing everything away from beneath it, and not just like a basic animation, unless that basic animation is the best way to explain the situation. So like if there's a big blotch of leaves beneath me, the leaves begin to blow away, so everything is contactable or interactable. So this would be the best way. This is one of the best shots for pyro, if you ask me, and I do love flying into this bit. I believe they did a perfect job here. And another thing, guys, if CIG can create something that looks so grand and so beautiful as this, then a lot of the askings that a lot of the gamers such as myself ask for, we don't ask because it's out of reach. It's obviously something that they can obviously achieve, and obviously deliver on to the gamers. So taking that into consideration, I would like to actually pitch, even though I'm one of the kind of I've got to use the term bitches as well, that CIG obviously are on top of their game, guys. They're pretty darn awesome at whatever it is that they believe it is that they're doing, and they're also pretty good at keeping a lot of their audience focus base kind of like stagflated on their genre, while they consistently feed us with whatever it is they're trying to feed us with. So a little bit of patience is actually not a bad thing. So I guess I could even go ahead and say congratulations, guys, we've made it this far. You've kept your nerves, you kept your patience, and we're doing pretty darn well and finally. Now it's just time for CIG to kind of like finish that wave packet, and that will be with 1.0. what did we have on to us. Anywho, taking that into consideration, what do we have here? Oh yeah, most importantly, if I upgrade my ship's engine, obviously it's nice that they brought in ship sounds and ship noises, you know, as they go whizzing by, and I always think, yeah, that's kind of cool. But if I go out and I say, okay, I'm gonna go upgrade my ship's engine, so I go out and I upgrade my ship's engine, guys, and I've souped up my ship with a new engine. Chances are it's a better engine from the one that I had prior, because downgrading. So I upgrade my engine and I go whizzing around the verse. I tend to find that the engine sounds exactly the same as the previous engine I had in my ship. I'm not sure if you guys have that as well, but that's something that I would like to have looked into. Why is this? If you go out and you say you're going to buy yourself a car, usually it'll be a standard car, and then you say to yourself, okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to tune this car up. What do you mean by this? Well, I want to turn it into maybe not necessarily a racer, but something that does have a little punch and a kick to it. Why? Because you want to look fancy as you go down the street. So when you do this, chances are you're going to fine-tune your car, your engine, probably change your engine out. It's probably the cheaper way to do things than going out buying a souped-up car, of course. And you begin to, maybe you turn on the engine in a different way this time. Usually you turn the key, but this time you push a button, or maybe you just utter a tone or a word and the engines flicker on. And the sound of that engine is just second to none in this regard. What do I mean by this? That groaning tone that it gives off is so gorgeous, and you kind of say to yourself, I'm just going to sit here for the next 5 minutes and just let it just mumble away at me. I don't get that feeling when I turn my ship on. So that's something that we need to look into, guys. When I upgrade my ship's engine, especially for the first time, I want to feel like I've upgraded my engine. I don't want to feel like I've spent an arm and a leg on something and I get nothing in return. That transition from one thing to another can mean so much. Especially when you kind of say to yourself, when you go out and you buy, it's very similar to buying a new car and you've upgraded your car, you're investing into something. It's very important. These are things that shouldn't necessarily be meddled with, and these are things that should most certainly be implemented into the game. Taking that into consideration, the speed of the ship notably should be very different, and obviously maneuverability. Now, there's obviously something else that I do want to kind of like pitch onto you guys, which would be I will use the ship that I'm very fond of at the moment, which would be the Aurora Mark 1, which is actually one of my favorite ships, guys. It's the one that I pledged into. It's my very first ship, and it's one of the ships that I will always go back to because it's just so gorgeous. It's also very sleek. Some people actually go out their way to call it a brick. I think it's more than that. Its aerodynamic form is obviously second to none, and obviously its functionality. It has a bed, it has cargo. It's an all-rounder, just put it that way, guys. But taking that into consideration, it has 4 dynamic wings slated onto it. And these wings are completely inanimate, and they have no real other function than just visuals, which there's nothing wrong with. Like I said, it's one of my favorite ships in the entire damn game. Taking that into consideration, if you was to kind of like allow this ship to have a little dynamicness, range to those little wings, very slight tender movements, nothing drastic or dramatic, one could gain such mastery over their aerodynamics alone. How does this work? First off, like a bird as it goes to land in a tree, if you've ever observed a bird, either online or in real life, of course, and as they go drifting into the tree or speeding into the tree or onto a fence or whatever it is that they do, the most slightest movements they make with the wings creates the most drastic in effect. And I always think that is so grand and masterful, especially from like a grand creator such as a god of such, which was a master design and functionality as well. So taking that into consideration, it's exactly the same with the Aurora. I personally believe if those wings were able to move in the most slightest ways possible, but they'll have to move in the rightest ways also, its functionality could drastically change for its purpose. So you could use it for cargo hauling, so better for cargo, better for kind of like racing, better for kind of like something, when I say immersion, kind of like exploration, taking turns and dips and stuff, etc, etc, etc. So I believe certain ships, not all ships, but certain ships do have that ability. If you look at them in that certain way, you can take advantage of them in that kind of way, guys, but it just takes a little time and effort. You got to spend a bit more time with these vessels and not just kind of bang them out the door the first chance you get. Taking that into consideration, I would like to have better MFDs and stuff in these ships as well. So far, they feel kind of static, like they don't really serve a purpose. And obviously, when it comes to stepping aside from the ships for a minute, you have those the multi-tools. Well, you got the multi-tool, and then you got the bigger version. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's the heavy lift one. And if I go out and I buy one, which is cool, I can use it right away, but that's not how I want to use it. I don't mind that functionality at all, but usually things have an expiration date. In this instance, I would expect such a heavy lifting tool to kind of like run out of juice, so I've got to kind of like replace its battery. These things help me to feel like I'm really engaging with something that's practical, something that's real, something that's kind of like existent within the verse, and not just like a magic tool, as it were. Taking that into consideration, the heavy lift and the multi-tool kind of don't vary too much from each other. If I go out and I lift a 16 crate SCU with a heavy lift, I can lift it easily as well with the multi-tool. To me, that just don't make any freaking sense at all. The multi-tool shouldn't be able to handle anything more than a 2 crate SCU, if you ask me. Also its functionality should be pretty darn difficult. You're obviously holding it with your 2 hands, and everything sounds to be a little bit more muscle maintained and controlled, whereas a power lift sounds a bit more kind of like energized, as it were, like it's applying some sort of gesture to the notion, as to just leaving it to a manual kind of situation. I would obviously, CIG's obviously spoke of dynamic weather. I'd like to see a hell of a lot more dynamic weather, not just rain and clouds and moving and drifting clouds, but I would also like to see different compositions. We don't always just, when we go out into space, it's not always just water droplets falling from the sky. Certain planets, they drop lethal liquids, formulas, and I would like to get a taste of some of this. I remember when I was playing it, I can't remember if it was Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 3, we had that kind of experience where the planet was so hot you had to run from shadow to shadow to protect yourself from the heat of the sun. I can't remember if it was also due to radiation. There's none of that at the moment within this title, besides in the ASD, when there's radiation burst obviously happened on that kind of timely rotor. If we just kind of divert ourselves away from the ASD for a moment and just kind of like implement that notion into space, especially around stars and certain worlds and planets, especially like Aberdeen and is it Magda, Ariel, those moons especially that look like they're being kind of like cooked alive by Stanton. I believe the verse will begin to feel a little bit more immersive, as it were, a little bit more real. So rather than focusing on all these other systems and shooting them all out the door and forcing other gamers alike to have to play with bugs, take that time, hold on to a lot of these content materials, because we're still working on and focusing on content, because I've noticed a lot of stuff that's been released onto us in 4.9, 4.10. It's a lot of content. I was told that we won't be working on content, the focus would be on like bugs and fixes, etc, 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 and working on what we already have. We haven't really stuck to that notion, guys, and that's quite intriguing, to say the least. But it was to focus on a little bit more life within the verse, especially those biomes that we've been speaking about. I think that would be a very, very, very interesting way to go, and I think the verse is in deep need of that kind of renovation, as it were. Again, missions, we've got quite a lot of mission briefings in the title, and a lot of mission briefings, if you ask me, make the verse feel very much so like a game, and I don't necessarily like the idea of a game. I'm more of a simulator kind of guy, guys. But obviously we have titles out there like 6 Days of Fallujah. We have titles like Ready or Not, and we have titles like certain people are very interested in Rainbow Six Siege. I would more go with the term Ready or Not. And there's other titles alike, guys. Taking that into consideration, Art Corp, Whitebound Memorial, there's a big cloud. Beneath that cloud is a gigantic city, guys. In that city, you could get missions very similar to Ready or Not and 6 Days of Fallujah easily, but for some reason we don't focus on that aspect of gaming, guys. For some reason we're focusing on like ASD style missions and what's that one, Horizon Siege. It's not engaging enough. There's not enough enemies. The enemies are still stuttery and staggery. There's a lot of lag. The enemies are dumb as crap. And it's not challenging enough. I would like to start seeing like 500 enemies at minimum, mounting up into the thousands. So we have to rely on other players, friends and orgs, because at the moment there's no reason to have friends and orgs. You can just do everything solo. I've been doing solo for a very long darn time, guys, and playing with friends and orgs is a way of kind of like destabilizing the game, as it were, because it becomes too easy and you feel a bit kind of, you know, the realistic side of things begin to show and shine. And you know, if you ask me, it's not necessarily the nicest of feelings, guys. So I'd like to start seeing like nowhere less than 500 NPCs damn near per site. Bunkers, I would like to see about 30 to 50 NPCs outside and inside alike, mounting up to the number 50 or, you know, 70, maybe 30, you know, a hell of a lot more enemies. I would like to see certain weaponries on lines as well. Someone pointed out that the ASD had turrets, and I have not really faced any of the darn turrets yet, guys. And etc. Obviously Siege of Horizon looks like a breeze to me. I would like to see minimum 1,000 NPCs, 500, 200. It's too easy, taking that into consideration. Then we have the ASD. The ASD needs the goal should be to apply as much NPC units as possible. Let's just say you've applied all the NPC units. I'm able to go in there and wipe out all the NPCs and run out. What if I go into the ASD, wipe out as much of the NPCs as possible? Let's say I took out 50 of them. There's still about 250 left, and they're kind of blocking off the exit point. And obviously how it works now is the NPCs just kind of respawn, which is kind of like brain deadening to say the least. But literally I was on a bunker and I was like kind of looting a dude, and I was snapped out of looting. The reason being is because as I literally looked behind me, I saw 2 NPCs literally just ping into existence. And so I killed them, shot them in the back, and I got back to looting. And so at the moment, that's how things work. It's not that realistic, if you ask me, but it has its perks. But stepping aside from that, what if NPCs actually came flying in and, you know, reassuming their position? How does this happen? The NPCs that are not dead, maybe they would, I don't know, maybe call for backup and say that we need to refill a few positions because we've got intruders. I would like to start seeing kind of like security cameras as well, so it's harder for you to just kind of dip around like a Superman or Rambo. And I would also like to hear NPCs engaging with each other, like he was down on the last floor, he was up on that floor, he must be heading in this direction, he wants to get here, he wants to get there. I want them to be kind of like trying to predict what we're trying to do as well, especially for missions. At the moment you can just run circles around them quite literally, and they're just dumb as a plank of wood. I would rather them try to predict what my purpose, my outcome is, so that they can kind of like falter that the best they bleeding well can. That's when I'll kind of start saying to my, like for instance, I was playing Ghost Recon Breakpoint just the other day. I believe I have it uploaded on my channel actually, guys. And what the situation is I had my little ghosty position and I was snapping these dudes out. As I came down the hill, obviously I was in I was playing very stealthy, so I was in my stealth format. I took a position elsewhere and I started working on the NPCs, and I started scoping them. What they did is they remembered where I was, so they came running up from their position. They were about how far? They were quite a good distance away from where I was. They were about 600 meters away, and they left their position, maybe not so far, maybe about 300 meters. They left their position and they went to where I was, and I was like, wow, these guys actually remembered where I was. They've gone there because they're trying to scope out, because they're thinking I'm still there. I don't get that kind of feedback with the verse at the moment. The NPCs are pretty dumb. If I'm in one position and I move, if they don't go searching that position and like kind of stick there, kind of stay adhesively as it were, then I move around, and as I catch an NPC, he would be in a different location. He might be standing literally facing the wall, against the wall, pointing his gun at the wall, but raised up because I was on the ground above prior as I came down, and he's just standing there like bouncing from leg to leg as if prepping himself for live action. I'm standing right behind him looking at this goon. I shoot him in his back. It's like no one in the real world is going to be in that kind of situation. You're going to be alert, and you're going to be facing the doors at best, guys. So obviously the NPCs right now are very noobed. I know CIG are saying that they're using Squadron 42 to try and work on their NPCs, etc. There's no reason why you can't take what you have there and put it into the test first, so that we can't test them out, just to get an idea of the difficulty. I don't like the idea of always shooting at manned units. I would like to see a lot more aliens. There was a Constellation advertisement, guys, where CIG were advertising the Constellation, and as a Constellation comes flying in, we see these alien creatures that we've never necessarily really seen before. I'm not even sure if they have a lore in the verse, because I haven't read or seen anything of them ever since, but they look quite tribal, quite primitive as well. Pretty tiny little things. Why not just like kind of have them overrun the ASD, or kind of have a world similar to Dalamar that's no longer in the system, a test world where it's overrun by these things and players can't go there, and just have a way of a time. On like a lot of these alien species concepts, and obviously other species that are clocked to be in the verse, in the persistent verse, the live build, of course. So these are some of the things that I would like to start engaging with, while obviously CIG keep doing their thing in the background and posting on to the gamers alike when they feel the need, because at the moment it is quite brain deadening. I feel like I'm just running around shooting zombies, and it's not necessarily the most sweetest of experience. I tend to find that I'm mostly spending the majority of my time in the ASD, if not doing cargo missions, guys, and that's not necessarily so cool. And doing ASD and grouping up with dudes is not necessarily the best way of doing things, because no offense meant, obviously, but it's quite retarded in that regard. There are other aspects of this that I would like to bring out, guys, but I figured I'll just leave it here for now, along with the playthrough. It's your boy Patience, guys. I hope you like what you be seeing and heard, and if you did, you leave those thumbs and those likes and those comments down below. And if you have any queries, guys,